There is a rhythm to life that moves beneath the noise. It is not always loud, nor is it always kind. Sometimes it whispers in the stillness between heartbeats. Sometimes it presses through the weight of our most restless nights. Anxiety, though it feels like chaos, is simply one note in the grand symphony of your existence, a reminder that you are alive, sensing, reaching for meaning. Your brain, ever vigilant, tries to protect you, but in its vigilance, it sometimes forgets that you were not made merely to survive. You were made to create, to connect, to breathe in the wonder of this vast design. And so we learn peace is not the absence of storms, but the art of hearing the music, even in the rain. In the tapestry of time, your thread matters, not because it is flawless, but because it weaves the story the universe has been waiting to tell through you. You know what's fascinating? Your brain, this 3-pound mass of neural magic sitting inside your skull, is basically a living time machine. It's always running 2 programs, one that remembers every danger you've ever faced, and another that predicts every danger you might face. That's its job. And if you're here today, it's because it's done that job well enough to keep you alive. But here's the catch. It doesn't know we've upgraded our environment. It still thinks we're living in a world where stepping into the unknown might mean there's a tiger waiting around the corner. It's still scanning for threats in the same way it did 100,000 years ago, only now, instead of tigers, it's treating a tough conversation with your boss or a what is about the future as if your survival depends on it. It means that a meeting, a text that doesn't get answered, or a weird look from a stranger can send your heart racing and your mind spinning. Why? Because your brain's survival software can't always tell the difference between a physical threat and an emotional one. It tags them both as a danger and pushes you into high alert, just in case. This is where anxiety comes in. Anxiety is your brain's way of saying, I see something I don't like, and I want you to be ready. Here's the problem. Your brain is really bad at turning that alarm off. Once it goes off, it keeps scanning the horizon for proof that the danger is real. And if it can't find proof, it starts making some up, pulling from old memories, old hurts, old patterns, just to justify why you feel on edge. Now, most of us respond to this by getting frustrated with ourselves. We think, why can't I just stop worrying? What's wrong with me? But there's nothing wrong with you. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's just overdoing it. It's like a smoke detector that goes off not just for fires, but for burnt toast. And here's where the shift begins. Instead of treating anxiety like a personal failure, start seeing it as an outdated safety feature that needs a little reprogramming. You don't yell at your smoke detector for going off when you burn a pancake. You reset it, you open a window, you clear the air. The same thing applies here. The more you understand this ancient part of your brain, the more power you have to work with it instead of against it. Because when you see anxiety as a function, not a flaw, you can stop taking it so personally. You can start saying, oh, I know what this is. My brain is just doing its overprotective thing again. That one shift takes you out of shame and into awareness. And awareness is the first step toward control. I want you to imagine this for a moment. You're walking down a quiet street late at night, and suddenly you hear footsteps behind you. Instantly, your brain triggers adrenaline, tightens your muscles, sharpens your senses. That's your survival system. And in that context, it's working perfectly. But now, picture this same system firing when you're just sitting at your kitchen table, thinking about an upcoming presentation. The problem is, your brain can't tell the difference between real footsteps and imagined ones. And until you step in, it'll keep reacting as if everything is life or death. That's why learning how to interrupt and redirect this process is so important. If you don't, your mind stays stuck in that loop, scanning, predicting, worrying, while the rest of your life waits on hold. There's a beautiful irony here, though. The same part of your brain that causes anxiety is also the part that can fuel courage. The same hyper-awareness that makes you sensitive to danger can also make you deeply perceptive, intuitive, and prepared. When you stop fighting it and start channeling it, anxiety becomes less like a prison and more like a compass. So the goal isn't to destroy the protective instinct. It's to refine it, to teach it the difference between I'm about to be eaten and I'm about to be seen. To remind it that most of what scares you now is not fatal. It's just unfamiliar. And the truth is, your brain will keep doing its protective thing for the rest of your life. That's not going away. But when you know it's coming from a place of survival, you can respond differently. You can pause, breathe, and say, thank you for trying to keep me safe. But I've got this. That moment right there, that's the beginning of peace. Not because the world got quieter, but because you did, though. Not because the threats disappeared, but because you remembered you're not living in a jungle anymore. You're living in a world you can navigate one thought at a time. So next time your brain starts spinning stories and setting off alarms, remember, it's not broken. It's loyal. And with the right guidance, it can be your greatest ally instead of your loudest critic. Closing line, your brain is not the enemy. It's the instrument. And once you learn how to play it, the noise becomes music. Here's something most of us were never taught. Anxiety isn't a villain. It's a messenger. Think about it. Every signal in your body has a purpose. Hunger tells you to eat. Fatigue tells you to rest. Pain tells you to move your hand off the hot stove. Anxiety, it's telling you something too. We've just gotten used to treating it like an intruder instead of a note slid quietly under the door. Now, here's the tricky part. Anxiety doesn't always speak in plain language. It's not going to hand you a neatly written list of here's what you need to change. It's more like a cryptic poem, a feeling in your chest, a tightening in your jaw, a thought you can't stop replaying. And the mistake we make is that we react before we listen. We go straight into fight or flight without ever asking, what are you trying to tell me? I want you to imagine anxiety as a knock at the door. Sometimes it's knocking because there's something genuinely important you need to address. Maybe you're in a toxic work environment. Maybe you've been ignoring your health. Maybe you're saying yes to things you know deep down you should be saying no to. That knock, that's your system saying, hey, something's out of alignment here. But sometimes the knock isn't danger. Sometimes it's growth. The same sensations that flood your body when you're anxious are the ones that flood your body when you're about to do something new, big, and meaningful. It's the same adrenaline, the same elevated heart rate, the same hyperfocus. Your brain is wired to notice these sensations. It just doesn't always label them accurately. That means half the battle is learning to translate. Is this anxiety because something's wrong? Or is this anxiety because I'm about to stretch? That's the question. And here's where the magic happens. When you start treating anxiety like a messenger, you stop waging war against yourself. You stop thinking, I need to get rid of this feeling right now. Instead, you start thinking, I need to get curious about this feeling right now. That curiosity, that pause, is what opens the door to wisdom. Sometimes the message is slow down. Sometimes it's prepare better. Sometimes it's, this isn't for you. And yes, sometimes it's even, you're ready, go for it. The point is, you don't know until you listen. When you ignore anxiety or try to silence it, it tends to shout louder. But when you lean in and acknowledge it, even if you don't love what it's saying, it starts to calm down. Just like a friend who's been trying to get your attention all day, once you finally stop and say, okay, I'm listening, the energy shifts. I remember talking to someone who said, I just want to feel normal. I want to stop being anxious. And I said, what if I told you that your anxiety is part of what makes you extraordinary? But here's the truth. People who feel deeply, who notice the small shifts in a room, who think about the ripple effects of their actions, they're the ones who change things. They're the ones who create art, who solve problems others don't even see, who notice when someone's hurting before anyone else does. That sensitivity, that awareness, that's anxiety's upside. And when you see the upside, you start realizing anxiety is not just a symptom. It's a source of data. It's a teacher. It's feedback about how you're living, how you're showing up, and how closely you're aligned with the life you're meant to live. Now, I'm not romanticizing it. I know how uncomfortable it can be, but discomfort doesn't always mean a bad. discomfort can mean beginning. And sometimes the discomfort is just your body catching up to the size of the life you're about to step into. So the next time anxiety shows up, instead of thinking, and not again, try this. Treat it like a letter from yourself, delivered by your own nervous system. Read it, translate it, ask it questions. Because the more you listen without judgment, the more you'll find it's pointing you toward either a change you need to make or a courage you didn't know you had. And here's what's wild. The moment you shift from I hate this to I'm listening, the grip loosens. Your body softens, your breath deepens. You start to remember that you're in the driver's seat, even if the road ahead feels unfamiliar, because anxiety at its core is not a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that you're alive, alert, and wired to pay attention. The question is, will you fight the messenger or will you take the message? Anxiety isn't here to stop you. It's here to point you toward the very life you've been trying to find. It's funny how we tend to think of peace and chaos as opposites, like they're on two ends of a spectrum and you have to be in one or the other. But the longer I've lived and the more I've paid attention to my own mind, the more I've realized they're actually part of the same rhythm. They're both movements in the same song. Think about music for a second. A song without quiet moments is just noise. A song without bursts of energy is just a lullaby. It's the rise and fall, the tension and release that make it beautiful. Life works the same way. So does your mental state? Anxiety thrives when we convince ourselves the chaos shouldn't be there. When we think, if I could just get rid of all the uncertainty, then I'd finally feel at peace. But peace isn't about removing all the moving parts of life. Peace is about finding your footing even when they're moving all around you. And here's where it gets interesting. Silence isn't just the absence of noise, and chaos isn't just the presence of noise. Silence is where your thoughts get room to breathe. Chaos is where your courage gets called to the surface. We need both, not in equal amounts, but in an honest acknowledgement that each one shapes us in ways the other can't. Most of us run from chaos because it feels unpredictable, and we avoid silence because it feels uncomfortable. So we end up stuck in this middle zone where we're busy but unfulfilled, distracted but restless. And that's where anxiety loves to hang out, in the in-between space where we're neither fully present in the calm nor fully engaged in the storm. But what if, instead of resisting those extremes, we started moving toward them with curiosity? What if, when life got chaotic, you could say, this is the part where I grow in motion. And when life got quiet, you could say, this is the part where I grow in stillness. That's not just poetic thinking, that's practical. Because the truth is, chaos will show you things about yourself you can't learn in stillness. And stillness will show you things about yourself you can't learn in chaos. When I first started paying attention to this, I noticed something strange. The times I grew the most, the times I found the most clarity, were rarely the times when everything was balanced and predictable. They were the times when I was pushed to adapt, the times when a curveball forced me to see what I was really capable of. And also the times when I sat in complete stillness long enough to hear my own thoughts without the world's voice in my head. Here's the thing. Your brain is not naturally great at holding space for both silence and chaos. It wants to pick one and label it a good and label the other a bad. But when you start seeing them both as necessary movements, you stop trying to control the rhythm and start learning how to dance with it. That's the mindset shift that changes everything. Instead of fighting the chaos, you anchor yourself in it. Instead of fearing the silence, you lean into it. That's how you build trust, not just in the process of life, but in yourself. Because deep down, you start realizing that you're not fragile in either space. I want you to think about the last truly chaotic moment in your life. Maybe it was a job change, a breakup, a health scare, whatever it was. At the time, it probably felt like the floor had dropped out from under you. But here's the question. Did it end you or did it grow you? Did it teach you something about your strength, your creativity, your resilience? And now think about the last stretch of deep quiet you had. Not just physical quiet, but emotional quiet. Did it feel strange? Did you reach for your phone? Did you fill the silence with something just so you wouldn't have to sit in it? That silence is a mirror. It reflects back the parts of you that get drowned out when life is loud. If you can learn to trust both, to say yes to the lessons in the storm and the lessons in the stillness, anxiety loses one of its favorite tricks. It can't convince you anymore that one is dangerous and the other is safe. You start to understand that both are simply part of the landscape of your life. And that's the beautiful irony. The very interplay between silence and chaos is what teaches you balance, not the absence of one, but the ability to navigate both. That's what gives you real confidence, not the false kind that says, I'll be fine as long as nothing changes, but the real kind that says, I'll be fine because I can adapt to anything. That's how peace and chaos stop being enemies. They start being partners and shaping you into someone who can stand grounded no matter which one you're in. When you stop running from both the storm and the stillness, you finally hear the harmony they've been making together all along. The truth is, awareness is only half the battle. You can understand your brain. You can respect anxiety as a messenger. You can even see the beauty in the balance of silence and chaos. But if you don't know how to respond in the moment, it's like having a map and never learning how to walk the path. This is where the science comes in. And I promise you, we're not talking about a 10-year research project or something you need a degree to understand. We're talking about simple, real, actionable tools that literally change the wiring of your brain, not in some vague, adjust think positive way. I mean, actual, measurable rewiring. That's neuroplasticity. Your brain is not fixed. It's not this cement block that can't be changed. It's more like clay. Every thought you think, every action you take, every habit you repeat, it's like pressing your fingers into that clay. Over time, those impressions become grooves, and those grooves become the paths your mind takes without you even trying. When anxiety hits, your brain follows the grooves it knows best. For some of us, that's the groove of panic. For others, it's avoidance. For others, it's overthinking every possible outcome until we're exhausted. Those grooves were carved by repetition. But here's the best news you'll hear all day. The same way you created them, you can change them. And it doesn't take giant leaps. It takes small, intentional interruptions to the pattern over and over until a new groove forms. One of my favorite tools for this is something called box breathing. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold. Why does it work? Because it sends a signal straight to your nervous system that you are safe. And when your body believes you're safe, your brain starts to agree. Do that for 2 minutes, and you've already started carving a groove toward calm instead of chaos. Another tool, name the fear. I mean, literally say it out loud or write it down. I'm afraid my presentation will flop. I'm afraid this conversation will end badly. When you name the fear, you pull it out of the shadows of your mind and into the light. And research shows that labeling emotions reduces their intensity. It's like turning the volume down on your amygdala. And here's one that sounds too simple to matter, but it's powerful. Pattern interrupts. When you feel anxiety building, change your physical state. Stand up, stretch, step outside, splash cold water on your face. You're breaking the loop. Anxiety thrives in momentum. Stop the momentum, and you stop feeding it. Now, here's why these tools work. Every time you use one, you're proving to your brain that there's another option besides spiraling. You're building a new groove, a new pathway that says, when I feel anxious, I don't have to collapse into it. I can redirect it. And with enough repetition, your brain starts choosing that path automatically. I want you to really think about that for a second. How would your life feel if your automatic response to anxiety wasn't panic? Presence. If your default setting shifted from I'm not okay to I know how to handle this, that's the power of rewiring. It's not about eliminating every anxious thought. It's about changing what happens next. And that shift is everything. Because here's the thing, peace and confidence aren't gifts some people are born with. They're skills. Skills you can learn. Skills you can practice. Skills you can master. And the more you practice them, the more they become who you are. At first, yes, it feels awkward. You'll catch yourself mid-spiral and remember to breathe, or you'll force yourself to stand up and move, even when your body says it just stay frozen. But that's not failure. That's the work. That's you pressing your fingers into the clay and shaping something new. And there's one more thing. You've got to give yourself credit for every single time you choose the new groove. We tend to celebrate the big milestones, but this kind of rewiring is built on micro victories. Every moment you redirect your brain is proof you're changing. And over time, those moments add up to something life-altering. You won't even notice the exact day it happens, but one day you'll feel the wave of anxiety starting to rise and your body will just breathe. Your shoulders will drop, your mind will stay steady, and you'll think, wow, this is new. That's not luck. That's not someone else's DNA. That's the result of tiny, repeated acts of choosing your response instead of letting the old grooves choose for you. The science is clear. Your brain can change. The question is, will you give it the chance? Will you give it the chance? You can't stop the first thought, but you can always choose the second. And that choice is where your freedom lives. Here's the thing about rewiring your brain. It's not a one-time decision. It's a daily conversation. The grooves you're trying to reshape, they weren't carved overnight. They were formed by years of repetition, which means the new ones you're creating now. They need that same consistency to really take hold. And that's where rituals come in. I'm not talking about big, elaborate routines that take 3 hours and a perfect sunrise. I'm talking about small, deliberate moments that you return to day after day. Think of them like anchors, no matter how stormy the water gets. These are the points that hold you steady. One of the simplest and most underestimated is a morning grounding ritual. Before the emails, before the news, before the scroll, give yourself 5 minutes that belong entirely to you. That could be journaling 3 things you're grateful for, stepping outside to breathe in the morning air, or just sitting with a cup of coffee and noticing the quiet. What matters isn't what you do. It's that you start the day reminding your brain who's in charge. And here's why this matters for anxiety. The first moments of your day set the tone for your nervous system. If you wake up and immediately flood your brain with stimulation, notifications, tasks, headlines, you're starting on high alert. But if you begin with stillness and intention, you're telling your system, we're safe, we're steady, we're ready. That becomes the groove your brain wants to stay in. Another ritual, transition moments. These are little pauses you take when moving from one part of your day to another, from work to home, from home to errands, from errands to rest. Instead of dragging the energy from one space into the next, you stop, breathe, and reset. That could mean turning off your laptop and physically stepping outside for 60 seconds before you start dinner. Or sitting in your parked car for a minute, hands on the wheel, and just exhaling before you walk into the next environment. Why does this help? Because your brain needs clear signals when it's time to shift modes. Without them, you carry the tension from one moment into the next. And before you know it, you're lying in bed, still replaying a conversation from 8 hours ago. Transition rituals break the chain. Then there's the practice of micro-mindfulness throughout the day. You don't have to sit on a cushion for 30 minutes to be mindful. You can notice the way the light hits your desk at 2:20 p.m., the sound of water when you wash your hands, the way your feet feel when you take off your shoes. These small moments pull you out of the anxious loop in your head and root you back in the present, which is the only place peace actually lives. And here's one more, technology-free pockets of time. Anxiety feeds on constant input. It loves when your brain is juggling 10 tabs at once because it's the perfect environment for overthinking to spiral. So choose one part of your day, maybe the first 30 minutes after you wake up, or the last 30 before bed, where there's no phone, no screens, no constant buzz. Give your brain the gift of quiet. Now, the key with all of these rituals is to make them so small and so doable that you can't talk yourself out of them. You don't have to overhaul your life. You just have to plant these little markers into your day, reminders to breathe, to notice, to return to yourself. And here's the magic. Over time, these rituals stop being something you have to do and start becoming the way you live. They become part of your identity. You're no longer someone who reacts automatically to stress. You're someone who responds from a place of alignment. You're no longer someone whose mind is constantly running. You're someone who knows how to slow it down. And the best part, these daily practices don't just help you in the moment. They're training your brain for the future. Every time you choose one of these rituals, you're reinforcing the grooves we talked about earlier. You're showing your mind and your body that peace isn't something you stumble into once in a while. It's something you create on purpose every day. It's not about perfection. You're going to miss days. You're going to get swept up in the chaos sometimes. But the beauty of rituals is that they're always there to return to. You can always pick them back up. And every time you do, you're reminding yourself, I have tools. I have choice. I'm not at the mercy of my mind. These small moments, they add up. They turn into a life where peace isn't the exception. It's the baseline. And when that happens, confidence doesn't have to be forced. It just shows up because your nervous system finally believes you're safe enough to step forward without hesitation. Peace isn't found in a single breakthrough. It's built in the quiet, repeated moments where you choose yourself again and again. Here's the truth about peace and confidence. They're not just for you. Yes, they make your life better. Yes, they quiet the storms in your mind. But the real reason they matter is because you are a part of something much bigger. Every time you choose to calm your nervous system, every time you answer anxiety with curiosity instead of panic, every time you show up from a place of groundedness, you're sending ripples out into the world. The people around you feel it. The conversations you have change. The way you love changes. The way you lead changes. We don't exist in isolation. Our lives are threads woven into a tapestry so vast we can't see the whole picture. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean your part doesn't matter. In fact, it matters more than you realize. When you take care of your mind, you don't just change your day, you change your presence. And presence is contagious. Your kids see it. Your partner feels it. The stranger in the grocery line senses it. You become the calm in someone else's chaos without even knowing it. And I know, in the thick of anxiety, it's easy to believe your life is just about getting through the day, but it's not. It's about participating in this grand, unfolding story that started long before you got here and will keep going long after you're gone. Every moment of peace you cultivate, every act of courage you take, every quiet choice to show up fully, it's all part of that story. Think about it. The challenges you've faced, the storms you've walked through, the nights you didn't think you'd make it to morning, they weren't meaningless. They were shaping you. They were building the resilience you're now using to live differently. And that resilience doesn't stop with you. It becomes part of what you pass on, not just to the people you know, but to the world in ways you'll never see. I sometimes imagine it like a dance, not the kind with a set choreography, but the kind where everyone's movement inspires someone else's. You take a step forward in courage, and without realizing it, someone else sees you and finds the strength to take their own. You slow down, breathe and choose peace in a tense moment, and the energy of that moment shifts for everyone in it. This is the cosmic design. We are all moving together, even when we think we're alone. And here's the thing. Anxiety might try to convince you that you're just one small piece too insignificant to matter. But that's like saying a single note doesn't matter in a symphony. Remove it, and the music changes. Your note matters. Your part matters. Your part matters. When you start to see yourself in that way, because the more grounded and confident you become, the more you give permission for others to do the same. And you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to live in constant bliss or never feel anxious again. That's not the point. The point is to keep showing up, to keep choosing alignment even when it's messy, to keep trusting that your steps, even the small ones, are moving you deeper into the life you're here to live. So when you wake up tomorrow and feel that familiar hum of anxiety, remember, it's not here to destroy you. It's here to guide you. Use the tools. Lean on the rituals. Trust the rhythm between silence and chaos. And know deep in your bones that your willingness to do this work is adding beauty, stability, and light to the entire human experience. Because at the end of the day, your journey is not just about becoming someone who feels peaceful and confident. It's about becoming the kind of person who can hold that peace in a chaotic world, and in doing so, make that world just a little bit better. The thread you carry may be delicate, but without it, the tapestry of the universe would be forever incomplete.